Share my screen. So we're on chapter 2, the separation and atonement, and we're doing paragraph 4. Who wants to read?
I'll read.
Okay.
All fear is ultimately reducible to the basic misperception that you have the ability to usurp the power of God. Of course, you neither can nor have been able to do this. Here is the real basis for your escape from fear. The escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement, which enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. Only after the deep sleep fell upon you, Adam could he experience nightmares. I have to read that over again. Only after the deep sleep fell upon Adam could he experience nightmares. If a light is suddenly turned on while someone is dreaming a fearful dream, he may initially interpret the light itself as part of his dream and be afraid of it. However, when he awakens, the light is correctly perceived as a release from the dream, which is then no longer accorded reality. This release does not depend on illusions. The knowledge that illuminates not only sets you free, but also shows you clearly that you are free.
Oof.
That's cool.
It is.
I just wish I could have an instantaneous enlightened moment that would just go poof to every fear I've ever had. Wouldn't that be nice? So who wants to break this down? Personally, I kind of think...
I don't know if it's a breakdown, but it kind of feels like society. That's what happens, we're all, well, not we are all, but the news, mainstream media would like us to be living in fear. And a sudden light is probably quite shocking. So it needs to be a gradual realization for us all individually.
Nicely said, Bea.
And this was from the 1970s when she wrote this, wasn't it?
It was.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was way before her time, I'll say.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, has any of us experienced the light being turned on suddenly?
Well,
I may have once, but anybody else?
Yes, but is that, for me, that's, I was thinking realization. So whenever I have a realization, it's like this light comes on. Not a light bulb, but a light comes on, and I just sort of go, oh, right. So it's not a
Awakening kind of thing.
It's not a scared thing. I'm not scared of it.
Yeah.
I've had lots of practice with it, though. Had lots of realizations. So, so I don't know if that's the same sort of thing or whether that's just completely different. I'm not sure.
Well, it's from your experience, so it's that works. Anybody else want to comment on this paragraph?
There's a sentence or two in here that I just keep rereading. Here is the real basis for your escape from fear. The escape is brought about by your acceptance of the atonement, which enables you to realize that your errors never really occurred. And for me, that kind of has me thinking the thought of when we make a mistake, we hold on to it, we beat ourselves up, and you know, I wasn't here for all the atonement talk, so I can't speak too deeply into that, but just the acceptance of the atonement is like allowing you to wash away that error, that mistake, or that oopsie, and kind of just gives you that permission that you don't have to hold on to it. You've done it. It's done. You've learned your lesson. You've had your realization, that light bulb, so to say, turned on. It's okay to move forward.
And V, you are the atonement queen. Define define atonement.
Yeah, I was just looking for my. I need to commit this to memory. It doesn't seem to stick because it's just a real word that triggers, I guess.
Yeah, it doesn't stick with me either.
No. So I've written atonement is reconciliation or remembering who we are.
Okay, so that's like oneness with God. That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah, I really like that sense and that breakdown, Joe. Your errors never really occurred.
Kind of
I
makes
love
me
that.
feel,
Go
kind of
ahead,
makes
Joe.
me feel safe to move forward without holding on to, oh, what if I this or what if I that? It takes away all of those should have, could have, would have, and it just allows you to move forward in peace, or at least for me, anyways.
Yeah, no, this is a beautiful paragraph. Who wants to read the next one? Number 5.
I'll do it.
Go for it.
Okay, whatever lies you may believe or are of no concern to the miracle, which can heal any of them with equal ease. It makes no distinctions amongst misperceptions. Its sole concern is to distinguish between truth on the one hand and error on the other. Some miracles may seem to be of greater magnitude than others, but remember the first principle in this course. There is no order of difficulty in miracles. In reality, you are perfectly unaffected by all expressions of lack of love. These can be from yourself and others, from yourself to others, or from others to you. Peace is an attribute in you. You cannot find it outside. Illness is some form of external searching. Health is inner peace. It enables you to remain unshaken by lack of love from without and capable, through your acceptance of miracles, of correcting the conditions proceeding from lack of love in others. Whew.
Well, that's a mouthful. I don't see anything to break down personally. It was pretty clear.
Yeah. It seems like in this paragraph, peace and healing have become synonymous, interchangeable.
I think they always have been.
Yes.
Even biologically, it's if you live in states of high stress, you become quite ill.
Absolutely.
I came across this AI process, and it was an image of Lao Tzu, and I wanted to read this to you because it kind of fits beautifully in here. It says, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you are living in the future. If you are at peace, you are living in the present.
I love that.
Pretty, isn't it?
That's really cool. So where can I find that, Gary? I
just found it on a Facebook post on my feed in Facebook, and it was just an AI representation of different philosophers and masters, and had them talking, and Lao Tzu was the one that I was most impressed by. So I wrote down his quote that he said.
That's something I actually found a while ago when I was coming out of my depression and anxiety state. And I started reading it along with you while you were speaking it because it still rings true. And it's something that I still hold on to this day. So it's like a reminder, if I'm feeling depressed, then I start asking myself, well, why am I living in the past? What am I holding on to? Or if I'm in an anxiety state, it's like, well, what am I worried about for the future? And I realize, come back to peace, come back to the present, enjoy this gift that I have right here, right now.
Yeah, that helps me a lot. I have this tendency to project into the future, and whenever I would do that, it would always be something that would be more fear-based than outcome-based. So I've just done my very best to stop myself from doing that because it doesn't serve anything.
Found it.
Oh, good.
Lao Tzu is this author. I don't know whether that's the author actually. But anyway, thank you. That's brilliant.
I thought so too.
You guys so much.
Shall we go on?
Yeah, sure. Oh, look at that. We're on to the atonement as defense.
Joe, you want to give it a go?
Sure. You can do anything I ask. I have asked you to perform miracles, and I have made it clear that miracles are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. There is nothing they cannot do, but they cannot be performed in the spirit of doubt or fear. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly, and by endowing all of these thoughts with equal power, will inevitably destroy peace. That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God, which passeth understanding. Say that right?
Yep.
Okay. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind. It denies the ability of anything not of God to affect you. This is the proper use of denial. It is not used to hide anything, but to correct error. It brings all error into light, and since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically.
Awesome.
It's so true.
Yeah, there's a lot in that.
Mm. Yeah.
I love this one line that goes, there is nothing that you cannot do, but it cannot be performed in the spirit of doubt or fear. When you are afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That one got me too.
Yeah.
It's almost where I sit right now, where I've realized that not to worry about what could have, should have, or would have, or if, or all of that, and just stay in that state of peace and ask for the miracles to bring about what is needed to keep going.
Agreed.
And having that side, the side where it's not so peaceful, reminds us that the peace is so much nicer.
Yeah, the opposite always is a gentle reminder of where never to go.
Exactly.
It's all about faith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Faith and trust.
Yeah.
And
It's
believe.
almost like it's almost like we have to not allow, like Joe, I think you were saying about not watching the news.
Mhm.
The news terrifies me, tell you the truth, or it can. I read something the other day that just, really bothered me. And I thought, I absolutely have no power over any of it, other than the power of my ability to respond to it. That I have power over. And I think it's really important to not allow ourselves to be drugged into all of this stuff that's occurring in the world right now, because a lot is going on, and it is way past, it's way outside of the peace of God, I'll say that. And it really, I mean, we almost, and I love that one line, it's a proper use of denial, the denial of the ability of anything not of God to affect you. I love that. Love that. And that is a proper use of denial.
So is there lots going on in the world at the moment? I don't watch the news. I don't read the newspapers. And unless somebody said something about something, I know nothing.
Well, I do not want to actually speak it into existence.
No.
So
Thank you.
there's no,
Because really, it's not of our concern. We, like you said, Gary, we
no,
can't control it.
it's not.
And,
It's not.
all
That's
we can
right.
really do is just send prayers out to those dealing with the hard times. But if we're meditating in somewhat decent state, we're sending that love out around the world anyways, to bring that peace, that healing to these minds that are just corrupt or lost or hurt or broken or just not sure where to go in life.
Yeah. So it becomes super important, I think, that we use the proper use of denial, which I love that. And I love the last line. It says, it brings all error into light. And since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically with the proper use of denial. B, you want to do the next one?
Yeah. True denial is a powerful protective device. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial is not a concealment, but a correction. Your right mind depends on it. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth, but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego. In the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind and reestablishes the freedom of the will. When the will is really free, it cannot miscreate because it recognizes only truth. Let me just check that goes on a bit. No, excellent. This one's a bit confusing for me.
In what way?
True denial is a powerful protective device.
I took that as denying the outside world to come in and affect your peace. We have full right to deny ourselves of watching these low-lying vibrations. We don't have to pay attention to the news. We don't have to pay attention to the hardships. We can focus on what fills our light, not, extinguishes our flame.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. It's clearer now.
And actually, the second sentence kind of goes into that. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you.
Mm.
That's quite liberating too. So if I make errors.
Say again?
It's kind of liberating as well. So if I make errors, they can't hurt me.
No, and that I think is for me anyways, really, really, really powerful. Because how many of us have thought that we had created errors and we carry around this burden of either fear or guilt or something like that? Me as well. And before you know it, we're like writhing in this sense of uncomfortability.
Huh?
And it's got nothing to do with anything. I was working with a client today who something as benign as this, she was out feeding the wild birds in her backyard, and she put the excess seed in a dish and just put it on the ground next to her shoes. She didn't think anything of it. And her dog, her cute little dog, she's a 12-year-old dog, went and ate all the bird seed. I mean, who heard of dogs eating bird seed? Like, dogs don't eat bird seed, but this dog did, and she died. She died in my client's arms, and my client was sobbing uncontrollably because she lost her mom last year. Then she lost this dog that she was so in love with, and her sense of shame and guilt and responsibility for her dog's death was like overwhelming. Half the session, I just said, cry it out, just let yourself feel every little feeling you've got. Say anything that you need to say. And it was so interesting to see how the self-blame and the fear and the guilt just overpowered her completely. And it really had nothing to do with her. I mean, how many of you have ever heard of a dog eating birdseed and dying? Like,
I've never heard of a dog eating birdseed.
I've never heard of a dog eating birdseed either, much less dying from it.
Right.
But this dog just croaked on her. And I thought, and there was no obstructions in the dog's intestinal tracts or anything. So, I just said, really, this is about the dog's time to exit. And it wasn't like there was any intention to hurt the dog or cause harm to the dog. So it was just an interesting thing to see how much we will live in the experiences of our past and beat ourselves up for it. Sometimes our whole life.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Google even says fresh birdseed is not toxic to dogs. The only time it would be bad is if it was wet or moldy. So yeah, it was meant to happen. That pup's time was
just coincidence.
Yeah.
I hear her though.
Oh yeah, she was a mess.
Yep.
And yes, we don't have any control of it, so feeling guilt for it is like
correct. And you can't bring it back.
I really do think that you have to walk through those feelings to get to the other side of them. Yeah, like you have to express them, you have to honor them because they're a thing. They've already been created by your misconception. So for your ability to truly feel them, I think is really important until you can reframe them and compartmentalize them in a different way.
And I think too that in the case of your client, there was a guilt lingering anyway. So this was a perfect opportunity for her to express that guilt by projecting it onto the incident that happened. But it's guilt from it's guilt from something else. It's a long guilt.
There's some deeper seated guilts.
I think it was the guilt of being in America when her father was dying in Thailand or her mother was dying in Thailand. I think that's part of it as well.
But again, she can't do anything about that sort of thing.
No,
it's interesting why we beat ourselves up and we feel guilt about things. It's life. It's just part of life. Guilt is such an awful thing. It's just as bad as fear.
The useless emotion, that's for sure.
Yeah, totally. Draining.
There's this one line here that says, denial of error is a strong defense of truth. but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego,
Mhm.
which is when we deny the oneness and the perfection of God in our lives, then we actually create miscreations and projections of the ego, which always ends up in fear. I guess that when we are in fear, we're always in a separated mind, no matter what.
I'm feeling also with that example, Gary, which I think is really powerful, like the feeling of guilt. Where am I going with that? I think that's a really powerful exploration here, because it's like, what's the point of feeling guilty because we had no control over it? If we have no control, it's projection of the ego that we think we do.
Mm.
Um,
So maybe in the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind. So the denial of error frees the mind and reestablishes the freedom of the will. I mean, that's really cool. That's, if only we could do that.
Well, I
Yeah.
think it's possible. I think it's possible.
It is, but
This,
on a regular basis, like the way that we fearful, or the way that we feel guilty, or the way that, all of these, the opposite sides of those things, we seem to be able to do really easily.
Yeah.
When it comes to doing the right thing for ourselves, it's so much harder because we've always been told to think of others first.
Very true. Very true.
It's almost like we want to punish ourselves all the time.
Well, that's what guilt is.
I've got some examples of Murray, my man, who doesn't really seem to be very spiritual at all, but he has this ability when
But he's still a gorgeous
wrong,
person.
He is. He has this ability when something's gone wrong, he doesn't take it all personally. He actually will look at it and go, well, I could have done this differently, so this is my lesson, kind of thing. He doesn't say this is my lesson, but he says this is what happens, is that he looks at how he could have done things differently and learns from it. And when we were having a bit of an argument, and we didn't have a chance to communicate, he said, and I just said, we need to talk, and blah, blah. And he said, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. What can I do? And it was just a recognition, that powerful recognition of, I can see how you're feeling. There was no guilt on his part going, oh, and needing to justify himself. It was a recognition of how I was feeling without any guilt, without any kind of blame. What can I do?
He sees you. Beautiful.
There was no defense in that statement either.
Yes.
Like he wasn't defending anything, which was very clean, actually.
Yeah.
part of calling everything an experience and not labeling it. Like this has been a trip I've been on for a while now, giving thanks for everything I go through and not putting a label on it, not calling it good, not calling it bad, just recognizing it as an experience. And in doing so, you become pretty neutral to a lot. Emotion will still rise here and there, but as you travel through this experience, you more or less become neutral, and you don't have the emotional responses you would if you put a label on it of this is horrible, why are you doing this to me, or something like that. It's not easy to do. Like I've been talking about doing this, I think maybe 6 months, maybe 8 months now, maybe even a little bit longer. But as I get better and better at it, it's amazing how much you give yourself to when going through an emotional state with anyone or anything. Like even people with road rage, we can create many reasons on why whatever happens, but when you just say, okay, well, that was an experience, what can I take away from this moment in time, and give thanks for whatever that moment in time presents to you.
Very true, and well said, Joe.
Mm.
Thank you.
I really do love that one line. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth, but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego.
Mm.
So if we deny that we erred, or we just simply claim it as an experience with the best resources we had available at the time, not rationalize, not judge, know that we have that eternal oneness all the time, and whatever happens
Yes.
to the body or
Yeah.
to the mind really is not real,
Absolutely.
then we would have a ton more peace, wouldn't we?
Well,
And
and I've done it myself, and it was a while ago that I realized that this is what I needed to do. But even when other people say to me, I wish I'd done this differently. But again, it's that, but what was going on at the time for you to make that decision? Was it lack of money? Was it lack of support? Was it what was going on at the time? You made the decision at the time for yourself based on what was going on at the time. And that just makes it so much clearer. And when I first found that, it was like, oh my God, that in itself was so liberating and empowering. So, yes, the initial thought is to sink into, well, I made the wrong decision there.
that
But
whole
looking at
hindsight
it,
thing.
but looking at what was available at the time, why I made that decision, because this isn't available now. If I made the decision now, it would be different because I've got this available to me. So,
Plus, you've
it's
already been through that experience, so you've
mm,
already got the wisdom of going through it. So yeah,
mm,
that hindsight, it'll get you. You
mm,
know, you did the best you could in that moment, and that's one of the 4 agreements is always do your best. And
totally.
with all you have before you in this moment, you make your best decision. And granted, whatever happens when you look back at it, you're like, oh, well, I could have did this or I could have did
Mm.
that, but you didn't know you could have at the time, or you would have.
Well, regrets can help you pass away a hell of a lot quicker. So, if we're here to learn things, let's learn it while we're here and not have the regrets. So it is about looking back and seeing why we made those decisions at the time. And it is empowering and it's awesome.
Hey, V, the last, well, maybe it's just this one that I need. No, I think it's this one that I need. I'm going to look this up in my Course in Miracles book because I want to remember these two.
Mm. Bear in mind that the page number that's on here is the Kindle, which isn't necessarily the same page number of the actual book.
19. The
Page
actual book is page 19.
Thank you. Okay, beautiful.
Okay. Now we move on.
Yes, we shall.
Linda, do you want to read that one?
I sure can. You can defend truth as well as error. The means are easier to understand after the value of the goal is firmly established. It is a question of what it is for. Everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. The real questions are, what do you treasure? And how much do you treasure it? Once you have learned to consider these questions and to bring them into your actions, you will have very little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. You can, however, save time if you do not protract the step unduly. The correct focus will shorten it immeasurably. Apologies for my phone going off.
No, no worries.
I like those questions.
Mm.
Real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it?
Those are powerful questions.
Yes. And that will give you a in-depth understanding of yourself and what you value.
Absolutely. There's some gold in here today.
Mm.
Speaking of treasure.
And how much do you value? How much do you treasure it?
I almost want to break out a highlighter and start marking in this book.
I would.
Have you seen the meme on reading the Course in Miracles with a highlighter, and they're basically just highlighting every single line?
Everything.
That would be my problem. I need to come up with like a color coding first and what each color means. That way when I go back and look, I just don't see a bright yellow, book, bright yellow colored book.
Exactly. It's like, this is what I need to study, and that's yellow.
Because when you really think about it, this is sort of a test to see how well people live by their values. Because oftentimes people will treasure things that aren't even in their value system.
Mm. Yep.
I knew there was some type of values in there, Gary.
Yeah.
I bet if we go out into public and ask that question, we would find there's a lot of materialistic answers.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that's why we need to do that exercise, Linda. The values elicitation.
And then the next question would be, how much time do you spend daily pursuing the realization of your treasure? Of what you treasure? How much time you spend daily in either focus or pursuit of your treasure?
Does that include thinking about should be doing it?
No, that means doing it. Oh, you're a sneaky one, Linda.
Because
just seeing if you're awake, Gary.
I was thinking that when it says you can, however, save time, if you do not protract this step unduly, the correct focus will shorten it immeasurably. And it kind of rings true for when I think it was in Napoleon Hill where he talks about take action immediately. If you think of doing something that's in alignment with your goals, take action immediately.
Yeah.
Don't hesitate.
Yeah, because if you wait so long, the ego will take over and fill you with doubt, and then you won't do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, that little booger.
That's the gospel truth. That is the gospel truth.
Ego is a naughty thing, isn't it?
Oh, it's just a separated mind. It's like a frightened child.
It is.
A frightened goth child, we'll say, all dressed in black with heavy black eyeliner.
Yeah.
A bit like Wednesday, if you guys ever had the opportunity to see Wednesday.
Great series. Loved it.
Oh my God, it was the best.
Yeah.
The best.
What was it?
What was that animated movie with all the different emotions that the girl was having? And Joy wanted to be on the show. Oh, what was that called?
Yeah.
So good.
I don't know, but it was fabulous.
Yeah.
It was. Joe, watch it. It's on Netflix if you have Netflix. It's called Wednesday. Was it on Netflix?
Yes. Oh,
I believe the series, either that or HBO Max.
No, I did watch it. It was on Netflix. I got my Netflix.
Yeah, I don't have any television streaming stuff. I don't watch TV.
Right.
Okay. Well, this is actually worth watching.
But
the Addams Family.
Like Addams Family?
Yeah, the Addams Family Wednesday.
It's the young girl in Addams Family and the story of her teenage years, and it's hysterical.
Nice. It's really good.
Hysterical.
Nice.
She was priceless in it. Absolutely priceless.
Inside Out was the movie.
Inside Out?
Inside Out. Yeah.
Oh, that the movie with the different parts. Let me write that down.
I will put it on my list to watch.
Yeah, I got too many books in my stack to catch up on, and my personal treasure I'm spending a lot of time on because I wasted too many years doing dumb stuff, so I'm catching up. That's why I don't
Good for
mind
you.
walking away from the whole television scene and all of that. Like if I had a partner, we went to the movies here and there, sure, but it's became a very small part of my life.
Cool.
B,
I
what
have
did
a
you say it was called? Sorry, Gary.
It's Inside Out.
Inside Out.
It's not
Yeah.
on there anymore.
Oh, it came up when I looked. That's how I looked it up.
Joe, I
Inside.
have a sense that you're going to meet someone within the next year.
I'm in no rush.
No, I know. Why should you be?
And like I said, I recognize there's a lot within me to work on and heal, and there's a lot that I wish to do in life, and there's just that desire to keep pushing forward and achieve those goals. So when that time comes, I'll cross that bridge. But until then, I've got my eyes both focused on a goal, and that's in a sense getting my life to where I would love it to be.
Now, Joe, when I do the memory resolution certification, you must take it.
I still need to reach out to you about the whole June thing that we talked about before. I'm still trying to make magic happen so I can be part of
Okay.
that.
But I just want to load you up with skills to do your change work with people really efficiently so that you can get more clients and get more money and make those kind of things happen faster for you.
Beautiful. I appreciate that, Gary. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Joe, have you got Gary's email address?
Yes.
Cool.
Yes, I think the last thing I sent him was some robotics videos, I believe.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, shall we move on?
Yeah.
Number 4.
Yes. Do you want to read, Joe?
Sure. I think
Just because I like hearing your voice.
it's been a while.
Yes.
The atonement is the only defense that cannot be used destructively because it is not a device you made. The atonement principle was in effect long before the atonement began. The principle was love, and the atonement was an act of love. Acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. It was only after the separation that the atonement and the conditions necessary for this fulfillment were planned. Then a defense so splendid was needed that it could not be misused, although it could be refused. Refusal could not, however, turn into a weapon of attack, which is the inherent characteristics of other defenses. The atonement thus becomes the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. It can only heal.
Nice.
It can only heal. That just warms my heart.
I want to share something with you guys that that happened and it really is the atonement. I didn't realize it until just now, but there's V, you probably know this process, maybe you all know this process, but Ho'oponopono. But this is a little different the way that I do it. I've been doing it like this for a really long time. But I gave a client, his family owns half of Salt Lake City. So they're extraordinarily, ridiculously wealthy. And he would tell me that, he said, my mother is actually like she's a demonic presence. She's actually evil. And I'm like, okay, you know, I don't know what to think. All the things he told me didn't sound all that demonic. But then he had me speak to his aunt, who was her sister, and almost the first thing out of her mouth was, "My sister's truly evil. If anyone can embody evil, it is her." And so I'm listening to all the stories that he told me. I'm listening to all the stories that the aunt's telling me. And so when we were kind of towards the end of that session and the aunt got off the call, I told him, this is the one thing that I want you to do, because there's no way to communicate with this person, with his mother. His whole family was terrified of her. She would sever relationships and sue different family members if they spoke to one another. So she used the act of legal recourse to keep the family completely separate and fractured, which is very interesting. And so I had him do a meditation visualizing his mother, and then having a crystalline light coming through, a golden crystalline light coming through from the heavens above and from his crown chakra, filling up his body, exiting his heart into the heart of her, until he could see her body illuminated, and all he could feel was love for her soul. That's it. Not her personality, not her actions, nothing. Just to love her soul, knowing that her soul was inhabiting a body that was very fractured and fearful. So he's done this every day for 2 months. And last Sunday, he organized a family reunion with her excluded, and all the people that she sued and fractured, they all came. And I was like, now that's a healing. And I said to him, when you change the vibratory thought resonance that you have about someone, and when you change that, you're going to create a massive difference in the energy between you, this sort of morphogenic field, this morphogenic resonance. You're going to create a shift in it. And when that is felt on an unconscious level, it changes everything. It changes their behavior. It changes how they interact, changes how they see you, and it disengages their aggression to where things change in the relationship. And it did. So that for me is like the practice of seeing the light of God in the perpetrator. And he's done that, and it's created a bit of a miracle. So I think it works.
Shall we continue?
Yes.
Let me see if I can get that onto one page. Okay. Here we go. Shall I read that one?
Yeah.
Okay. The atonement was built into a limit on the need for the belief itself, and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. You can learn to improve your perceptions and can become a better and better learner. This will bring you into closer and closer accord with the sonship. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful.
Lovely.
I'm not sure I understand the last sentence.
Yeah, okay. I just would like to hear the whole thing again. Would you mind reading it again?
Yeah. The atonement was built into a limit on the need for the belief itself, and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. Learning itself, like the classrooms in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. The eternally creative have nothing to learn. You can learn to improve your perceptions and can become a better and better learner. This will bring you into a closer and closer accord with the sonship. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful. And yeah, I feel I still have a lot to learn.
Yeah, I was going to say that first sentence threw me because is learning ever really truly complete?
No.
I think in a perpetual state of the atonement, it is. Because then there's nothing left. There's nothing left of the mind. Because the learning process within itself presupposes that there's something missing in us, or we wouldn't be questing to fill in that space with some other piece of knowledge. But in the atonement, we are complete. We're totally 100% complete.
I guess I can relate to that. In sometimes, I guess, when I'm learning something, it doesn't feel like I'm learning it. I'm just remembering it, and it's like, of course, that's just, it's just what it is, and just never had the ability to express it before.
Very true.
So, in a sense, learning itself is like the classrooms in which it occurs. It's temporary.
Yeah.
That's basically what you were just saying, V.
It does feel a little bit impossible, though. I must admit, I'm reading that and going, oh, well, that's not going to happen, is it?
I've sat back and looked at life and saying, I've sort of said this to myself. It's like, I can only speak for me and my own relationship with myself, knowing myself like I do. And I was like, it's like God realization or the atonement can happen in a flash. Like in a flash. It's never anything you earn, in my opinion. It only comes from grace. And when I thought of that, I thought, oh, my meditation was lousy this morning. I lost it on some person on the freeway, but I don't really do that, but I'm just making that up. But, when my mind is spinning with some fearful thought or some this, that, or the other thing that I'm focused on, I think, how am I ever going to not have to come here again and hang upside down in some woman's womb again and have a little body again and grow up again and do all that again? It's like, how am I going to avoid coming back here if I can't get this right? And then I think, Gary, it's got nothing to do with you, quite frankly. It has to do with the love in your heart. It's not about your meditation. It's not about anything you can do to earn it. It's like it is going to be grace. That's how it'll come. I'd like to just know what other people feel like when you really think about your quest, that thing that you hold, what that you treasure so much. Mine is, to be able to go into the inner realms in meditation. But when I look at that, I think I spend an hour a day, doing my best to still my mind in meditation. But the rest of the day, sometimes, thought of my master will come to my mind. I'll do my mantras, maybe another hour during the day. And then I think, but what if your focus of your mind is your devotion, what else am I devoted to? And it's not that. So I'm thinking to myself, how long is this journey going to be? Unless I can bring my mind into this discipline, which I haven't been able to do yet. But what do you guys experience? I mean, when you look at really what is it that you treasure? If it's your spiritual path, how do you reconcile the time you're spending practicing that and then reconcile the time you don't spend practicing it? What happens for you guys?
Don't reconcile.
Say again?
Don't reconcile.
To some
That's
extent,
probably the best way.
It'll only lead to regrets. We've discussed that already.
Yes, we have.
to some extent, I feel that I incorporate, it's a being of service even though I'm just doing accounting work, and that would seem quite materialistic and not really very spiritual. I find that my conversations with my clients and finding out how I'm actually helping them, how I can be of service, helps me to attain some level of state of grace. And also doing the lessons from this book, it's still very much a learning process, but the lessons will say, okay, so you're going to sit twice a day for 10 minutes or whatever, thinking about this concept, but also tapping into it 3 or 4 times during an hour. And I find that's quite a challenge. I'll get to the end of the day and go, oh, how often did I do that? But I think subconsciously it does happen by doing the study. That's my take on this little paragraph.
Awesome. Joey?
I'm not sure I can fully answer, but I'll see what I can wing. So for me, a lot of my spiritual growth has really set in recent months. Yes, I've been on my journey for a few years now, but in recent months, I have had huge shifts. And I'm realizing that it's really, for me, how you perceive yourself, how you present yourself in the world. Like Gary, you've talked about the one quote somewhere in this book about walking hand in hand, and that's to me, that makes sense. It's becoming the unity. With so much division in this world, unity is the main thing we're lacking in. Finding that ability to accept whoever, wherever, however they present themselves in that moment, and know that that's just that moment is it's not an easy task, but I think it's one of the ways to become into that enlightened state, to move forward with the sense that you won't have to come back again. You won't have to hang upside down in a mother's womb. But it's really a practice to find that stillness, to find that peace, to be that accepting of all. And just earlier today, I hung up on a friend because what he wanted to so surely talk about, I did not want to put any vibration into. And, I simply stated a few times, I don't want to discuss this. This has nothing to do with me. This has nothing to do with you. You are passing judgments, and I want nothing to do with this vibration. And I left the conversation. And that's something I think a lot of us should start doing, is to stop receiving what we don't feel comfortable receiving, so we can move forward in that most divine light. If we keep falling into that low vibration, we're going to remain there. We're going to have those judgments. We're going to have that egotistical mind creating those scenarios that keep us in a shit state. And when we can recognize that that's not where we want to be, or at least me, that's not where I want to be, I find more peace and I find more joy. And I can still, call out to God and say, thank you, Lord, that experience, it created a stronger boundary. Maybe my friend will understand when I don't want to speak on a topic, I don't want to speak on it. And we'll see how this goes for me, but it's my learning process currently, and this has only been going on really for a matter of month and a half, 2 months, when some deep stuff happened.
Awesome. Yeah, it always is going to be the focus of our minds and the meaning that we're ascribing, because every time I work with clients, I mean, I am in deep service to them. I have a lot of compassion for each person I work with. And I guess, you know, I feel like I'm coming to a junction in my own development where there's this leap I'm going to need to take. And I'm not 100% sure what that's going to look like yet. But it feels like there's this leap that I need to take into a whole nother level of commitment that I'm going to make. And again, I don't know what kind of form that's going to be, but I'm going to embrace it when it comes, because I'm getting more opportunities as I go down the track that that is going to call me forward in a way I haven't been called forward before. And we'll see how that all earns itself out. But I just feel like there's something big on the horizon, and I will not be able to meet that with any level for any period of time with a separated mind.
I've been feeling that big thing coming too, and it's getting larger and larger as it gets closer and closer.
Yep. Yeah. And time will tell.
Speaking of time, we're past the hour.
Oh dear. Okay. Let's give our word, because I've got a client in 10 minutes. So V, what's your word?
Well, I'm going to take away those questions. What do you treasure, and how much do you treasure it?
You took mine.
It's everybody's.
I'll state this one. Atonement truly is the only answer to all things. Linda?
The means are available whenever you ask.
Nice. Joey?
Beautiful. I don't have a fresh one. V kind of swiped mine right out of my
I
off of my tongue.
We can share that.
Embrace the community, or the unity of community.
Lovely.
It's another one. I like sharing that one.
Beautiful. All right.
Okay. Great to see you. And you all have a wonderful night. And Lady Linda, you enjoy your double bed now. It sounds like it's all roomy and cuddly.
Yes, once it's finished, it'll be all done today, and then I'll start heading off to South Australia. So look out, V, I'm on my way to you next weekend.
Cool. Cool. Joey, you have a wonderful night, my
day.
friend.
Thank you, Gary. You as well. We'll see y'all soon.
Okay.
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 Take care,
Bye,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
Thank you.